just hope it all works out because, you know, my family moved out to LA for me, and I want to be able to, you know, buy a house for my parents, and I want my sister. I'm gonna get choked up. I'm sorry.
Victoria Justice is going to be one of the biggest stars in the world within 5 years. I think the girl's going to be making $10 million a movie.
I want my songs to be on the radio, and I'd love to do a tour and do movies at the same time.
Who's most likely to break out into song or dance?
Most likely to break out into song and dance is Ariana Grande. We'll give that one to Ariana too. Ariana, definitely.
Yeah, Ariana.
That's probably Ariana.
Me. I would say that's an even tie between all of us.
Imagine landing the role of a lifetime as a kid on Nickelodeon. Not only are you going to be joining the ranks of comedic legends like Amanda Bynes and Miranda Cosgrove, but Nickelodeon wants to transform you into their very first pop star.
Nickelodeon!
One that can compete with the massive Disney Channel, aka Hannah Montana.
Nick.
They set you up with Britney Spears' producers and Katy Perry's writers, making music videos and albums for your big debut on the show. But once you get to set, you find out you'll be singing alongside some of the most talented child prodigies that the world has ever seen, taking the stage and having to not only outshine Liz Gillies, but pop superstar Ariana Grande. Today's deep dive subject thought she was up for that brutal challenge, and the entire world would punish her for it. So join me as I dive deep into the heartbreaking and tragic true Hollywood story of Nickelodeon's failed pop star project, Victoria Justice.
If you have been a deep diver for a while, then you know we absolutely love today's sponsor, Aura, a service I have personally used for about a year now to protect myself and my data. As y'all have probably noticed, data protection is all over the news right now, being used as a reason to ban TikTok. One of the main justifications for this ban was TikTok's vast data collection of its users. You know, they're just so concerned that TikTok was sharing your age, phone number, and location, they literally banned the most popular social media network in the world for roughly 12 hours, just to, quote, protect you. Yet, in the US, data collection is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You or I could go to any data broker's website right now and buy anyone's data for a few bucks. And it's completely legal. Big companies with poor security are getting hacked every day, and your personal information is being sold on the dark web so spammers, scammers, and identity thieves can target you. If the US can ban TikTok, why won't they protect you from these similar practices? It's quite literally on us to protect ourselves. That's why I use Aura. Aura keeps me safe online by doing all of the hard work for me. They will identify data brokers who are selling my information and submit the opt-out request for me. Give Aura a few weeks and you'll stop seeing your information on these sites when you search yourself. Aura will also continuously monitor the dark web and alert me if they find my personal information exposed. They're gonna let me know fast if anyone tries to use this information to access my credit or bank accounts. So go to our link, aura.com/deep dive to try 14 days for free. That will be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data has been exposed. Thank you again, Aura, for sponsoring this episode of Deep Dive. Now grab your floaty and let's get back to the video.
Now, today's deep dive story starts all the way back in 2003, when a 10-year-old Victoria Justice would move to the sparkly land of Hollywood, California. Victoria would immediately start auditioning, and with her quick wit and acting chops, she very quickly landed a guest spot on the cult classic TV show, The Gilmore Girls.
Tastes like diapers.
It's not tastes like diapers.
There's a lot of pressure on a career that began at the age of 8 with a national commercial.
Ovaltine's amazing!
I was watching TV one day and a kid on a commercial came on screen and I started yelling. I was like, "Mom, Mom!" And she came in the room and I was like, "I want to try that."
Only 1 year later, in 2004, Victoria would take part in the Disney Channel series The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. At the time, the Sprouse Twins Disney Channel show was being used as a testing ground of sorts, all for the next generation of stars, including but not limited to Selena Gomez, Victoria Justice, and even fellow Victoria's alumni, Daniela Monáe. And I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I mean, she was my favorite. I don't know about you, but she was definitely my favorite.
All I wanna know is when we're letting go, so we can get this record to break.
I was talking with my sister about this, and we both feel like Chicago has become part of the collective consciousness.
Chicago, Chicago.
Anyway, Victoria would make a huge splash on Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, as she would lip lock with Cole Sprouse in a now unforgettable scene. While this would get her in front of thousands of kids on screen and even get her a movie series with the Sprouse twins called Appletown, which y'all, I have never heard of. Comment below if you've ever seen that. Victoria Justice still wasn't a household name. That is, until she ditched the Disney Channel for good and looked no further than Nickelodeon. After booking numerous commercials in 2005, Victoria Justice would attend an audition for the notorious producer known as Dan Schneider. Now, we have covered Dan Schneider in depth. We have multiple videos about him. I will link a playlist up above and down below. But back in 2005, Jamie Lynn Spears' show, Zoe 101, had actress Kristen Herrera, who played Dana, leave the series. And Dan Schneider needed to act quickly and cast a new actress to play Zoe's new roommate. And Victoria Justice would attend the audition at only 12 years old. Now, in our past videos, we've really broken down all the creepiness surrounding the Dan Schneider acting camps and the auditioning process in general. But to sum it all up, to get on screen in the Dan Schneider universe, you often have to do unspeakable things, some that allegedly don't even make it to tape. When he first auditioned Victoria Justice for a role as the new roommate on the second season of Zoe 101, Dan Schneider vividly recalled the auditioning process of Victoria to the New York Times, saying from her look and the way she carried herself, she had a great energy, and that by the third episode, he called Nickelodeon and said, quote, "I've got your next star."
Hi, I'm Victoria Justice.
She was just 12 when he cast her on Zoe 101.
I'm an actress.
What makes her a superstar on the Launchpad?
When she walked in and said, "Hi, I'm Victoria Justice and I'm 12 years old," I was like, all right, this kid has real charisma. I'm thinking, this is a kid I want to probably develop a TV show for.
All of that to say, Dan recognized a very special talent in Victoria, and she would finally be cast on Zoe 101. Now, this was a setup for success for Victoria. In the words of the New York Times, quote, "There are no guarantees of success in Hollywood, but there are few things closer than a Dan Schneider comedy." This would be Victoria's first big break into Hollywood, and she would parlay her role as Lola as best as she could. Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider had huge plans for Victoria Justice, and in the back of Dan's mind during the entire filming of Zoe 101, he knew Victoria was gonna be his next big star.
Today, she has Nickelodeon star maker Dan Schneider to thank. The man who created iCarly, Zoe 101, and Drake and Josh.
Victoria Justice is going to be one of the biggest stars in the world within 5 years. I think the girl's going to be making $10 million a movie.
Now, Victoria would play Lola on Zoe 101 for multiple seasons and would definitely be favored in the writing of that show. She brought a lot of life to that show. I mean, seriously, some of Jamie Lynn's scenes were painful to watch. Anyway, after the shocking ending of Zoe 101,
she's pregnant. She's having a child.
How mad must Nickelodeon be right now?
Nickelodeon was in the market for a new TV show that was centered around music. And since Victoria just left Zoe 101, she was now a free agent. See, at the time, Disney was exploding with their new musical movie series, High School Musical. And you couldn't turn on a Disney show without the cast singing and dancing across every scene and commercial break. It was truly a golden era for music on the Disney Channel. Whether it was their record label or just a random dance break, Disney began focusing every one of their shows on music. Meanwhile, over at Nickelodeon, their hit shows Zoe 101, Drake and Josh, and iCarly were much more edgy than Disney Channel could ever be. But they lacked one thing: music. This is where Victorious would come in. See, Dan Schneider knew he could take the children's music industry head on and compete with huge players like Hannah Montana, Selena Gomez, and the cast of Camp Rock, all with his secret weapon: Victorious. And specifically, at that time, new actress and aspiring performer, Victoria Justice.
Do you want to be a movie star or a singing star?
I want to do both.
You want it all?
I want to do both. I want it all. Why not?
I think the whole kids TV thing really snuck up on the entertainment business. So now the big agents want to sign the kids who star in these shows.
Now, the TV show Victorious is one of the most fascinating phenomenons to happen in children's programming since the High School Musicalification of the Disney Channel in 2006. Dan wanted to create a musical show around Victoria Justice.
Yeah, I was on Zoe 101, which was a show that Dan Schneider had created for Jamie Lynn, and when that show was ending, we were talking about doing a potential show for me, and he took me to dinner one night and was like, you know, Victoria, like, what would you want your show to be about? And I was like, well, when I first moved out to LA, I didn't know anyone, and I was enrolled in a performing arts middle school, and I had singing and acting and dance class every day. And that was, you know, that was my life. And so I think it'd be cool to do a show based off of that.
And the show would follow a group of the most talented teenagers in California, all attending Hollywood Arts, a performing arts high school. The students would get caught in various hijinks with the teachers, and they would find themselves in some very sticky situations that they would often have to sing their way out of. Almost everyone who would make up the cast would have previous experience in Broadway. Leon Thomas III, who would be cast as Andre Harris, started on Broadway before he was even out of single digits. At 9 years old, playing the role of young Simba in Broadway's The Lion King. Dan Schneider would also find Elizabeth Gillies and Ariana Grande on Broadway, both in the Broadway masterpiece 13. Now, 13 is highly regarded as the first musical to ever feature an all-teenage ensemble, and they would be some of this generation's most talented voices. Needless to say, when Dan Schneider first heard Lucy and Charlotte sing their hearts out in the musical 13, he needed to figure out who played them so he could utilize their talents in his war against Disney Channel's programming, thus casting Ariana Grande and Liz Gillies to play the parts of Kat Valentine and Jade West. Now, the cast of Victorious was made up of 3 of the best child Broadway performers, and obviously the very talented Victoria Justice. However, these are career singers we're talking about. Elizabeth Gillies, Leon Thomas, and Ariana Grande were obviously powerhouse vocalists, and the rest of the cast would be chocked full of comedic geniuses. Danielle Monet, Matthew Bennett, and Avon Jogia would make up the rest of the ensemble cast of Victorious. Now, Avon Jogia was already very deep in the Hollywood scene. He co-starred alongside Victoria in the TV movie Spectacular before Victorious even filmed, and in between shooting scenes for Victorious, he would wrap himself up in a Miley Cyrus dating scandal. Victoria Justice, a relatively new player to the world of acting and singing, was super hopeful at this point in the casting process. A 17-year-old Victoria telling the New York Times she's been acting for years, but she was finally being cast on a show where she would get to put her singing and dancing abilities to the test. It was a dream come true that later would become a nightmare. Victoria wouldn't only be given the Child Star Toolkit to become the biggest star Nickelodeon had ever seen.
Victoria Justice is a child star who's just now coming of age.
I want my songs to be on the radio, and I'd love to do a tour and do movies at the same time. I just hope it all works out because, you know, my family moved out to LA for me, and I want to be able to, you know, buy a house for my parents, and I want my sister. I'm gonna get choked up. I'm sorry.
She gets emotional in part because she's still refreshingly candid.
I was 11 years old. I had done over like 30 commercials, and I had modeled for Guess and Gap and Ralph Lauren and a bunch of different people, which was really cool. But at that point I was getting older, and I was like, well, I wanna do TV and film. I wanna move out to LA. I wanna really like go for it.
I wanna be an actor.
I wanna be an actor.
But she had the music toolkit as well. See, Victorious wasn't just produced by Schneider's Bakery, Dan Schneider's company. For the first time ever, Nickelodeon partnered with Columbia and Epic Label Group of Sony Music Entertainment, all to co-produce Victorious. That's why you see all those stars in their lockers, and you hear all that unreleased Kesha music in the background, and you even see Kesha in person on the episode.
Dance.
Now, this was Victoria's big break. The music industry was finally on to Disney's formula, and they wanted a grassroots project of their own, and Victoria Justice would be the namesake and star. The producers working with Kelly Clarkson, Katy Perry, Kesha, and Britney Spears were the ones who would be tasked to turn Victoria Justice into a pop star for the masses.
It's gonna be ridiculous.
So what went wrong? Well, there's a few reasons why Victoria fell flat on such a massive platform. To start, the Nickelodeon Popstar platform was shaky to begin with. I could talk about this seriously all day, so if you want to follow me on Instagram at JX3gram, I will actually talk your ear off. But basically, the main differences between the Disney Channel Popstar Factory and the Nickelodeon Popstar Factory were their resources. If you were signed to Hollywood Records, Disney's record label, they would be able to use their connections to get you in every single type of medium. From award shows to radio play to interviews to red carpets, they could really take anyone, throw them into their star machine, and instantly make them a Disney star. Even newer Disney Channel stars like Maya Mitchell and Ross Lynch were able to make a massive career off just one small blip on the Disney Channel. Meanwhile, over on Nickelodeon, they may have had some amazing connections, a new record label partnering with them, and lots of new prospects for their upcoming artists, Max, Victoria Justice, and Miranda Cosgrove. However, Nickelodeon themselves didn't own their entire system. They were teaming up with various businesses across various spaces to try and pass Disney Channel's revenue and viewership, but they were lacking that amazing Disney Channel infrastructure. Disney Channel owned every moving piece of their machine, from Radio Disney to the Radio Disney Music Awards to their magazines and CDs and talk shows. They were the ones in charge of giving their stars radio play and even awards from their own award show, but kids didn't know the difference. It was a genius marketing strategy to make a pop star look even bigger than they were. Nickelodeon would attempt to copy this when it came to their pop stars. After all, they did put on the Kids' Choice Awards every single year and had every connection possible through Viacom.
Hey Nikki, am I like in one of your music videos?
No, Will. You're in Kids' Choice headquarters.
Transporting slime target, Victoria Justice.
When I make... Whoa, where am I? Will, you want to do a duet? Okay, I'll take that as a no.
Now, while obviously the Kids' Choice Awards were a massive success, the pop stars that Nickelodeon created lacked that off-screen depth that Disney stars usually possessed. Off-screen, as you saw in our Miley series, the Disney Channel stars were getting into wildly public A-list relationships with each other and other celebrities, making songs about one another, all while intermingling with tons of non-Disney celebrities. Meanwhile, Nickelodeon actresses often either faded into obscurity after their shows ended, or they made a humongous splash for all the wrong reasons. Nickelodeon's pop stars lacked that 3D element that Disney's pop stars possessed naturally. It was definitely a difference in casting and who they were going to promote. Disney would choose someone with longevity, whereas Nickelodeon would choose one of their existing TV stars, whether they started out as a side character or not. See, if Disney Channel stopped promoting like Raven or Hilary Duff or Miley Cyrus, the news would still talk about that person. There would still be a natural conversation about, oh, where did they go? But when it came to Nickelodeon stars, after Nickelodeon was finished giving them their 5th TV show, their 99th Kids' Choice Award, and their fake interview for whatever music publication Sony Music hooked them up to, after Nickelodeon stopped all that, after they were on their 16th minute of fame, you wouldn't hear a peep from them. I mean, just ask Symphony Camiller. She was a Nepo baby born into fame, got her own TV show, and she faded into obscurity. Now, the music from Victorious had moderate success. The first album charted number 5 on the Billboard Hot 200, but the solo music from any of them besides Ariana Grande would completely flop dead in the water. And while Miranda Cosgrove has dropped some of the best songs of all time, she still failed to do substantial numbers. But at least she had more of a cult following than Victoria. Victoria was truly left with nothing. Anyway, back to why Victoria failed to break into the pop scene. While sonically, the Victorious team would create some of the best pop masterpieces children's television has ever seen, Victoria would also need to visually sell the songs. She needed to perform her heart out as Tori Vega on stage with Leon Thomas III, Ariana Grande, and Liz Gillies, all who would be competing, working alongside her. Hollywood is cutthroat, and Victorious was filled with scene stealers. Honestly, this show should be in the dictionary under the word scene stealer. After the first episode of Victorious premiered after the 2010 Kids' Choice Awards, the show would immediately blow up. Victoria would immediately be pushed by Nickelodeon as the show was named after her, being featured in almost every bumper ad and across various other TV shows. She was the star of Victorious after all, but she wouldn't be the star for long, as during the first season of Victorious, the cast would all sing, not only Victoria.
We all sing.
And a few other cast members would completely completely steal the spotlight from her scenes, particularly in the episode Freak the Freak Out, when Victoria would debut her new single of the episode's namesake. But Liz and Ariana would steal the attention with their duet, Give It Up, which is arguably one of the best vocal performances in children's television history. Victoria's voice was pretty, but she would fade into the background, and the children's audience of Victorious would predictably become huge fans of the trained Broadway performers. Presumably, market research showed that kids liked Kat Valentine and Jade West more than Victoria's character. This was a major problem for a show named after the main character, as they couldn't make her quietly move away. They could try to write her to be more likable, but that would be a risk. Thus, as Victorious continued on, Dan Schneider would write Victoria as the villain in her own TV show, quietly and sometimes not so quietly becoming the most unlikable person on the entire show. Victoria's character lacked depth, especially compared to the other characters on Victorious. You have Robbie, who's a schizophrenic ventriloquist, Beck, who's almost dating Tori but mostly dating Jade the whole time, Jade, who's self-admittedly emotionally disturbed, Kat, who was a fan favorite, Andre, who's the most musical out of the entire group, and then there's Tori, who not only was a blank slate character, but often chose the absolute wrong decisions. But one episode would change audiences' views of Tori forever, when Tori would steal Kat's boyfriend. This set Victoria up for a career full of scandal. Whether Victoria was privy to this or not, we may never know. But if you saw our video on Elizabeth Gillies and Michael Corcoran, which I highly suggest you watch if you haven't, a blind item revealing a darker side of Nickelodeon would change everything. Now, just to be clear, this is a blind item and there is no merit to this claim at all. It does line up with the timeline of the way things went, and it's an interesting piece of information to look at. This is where we get to, in my opinion, the darkest part of the Victoria story. In 2017, a blind item would be uploaded from a friend of a star of a Nickelodeon show. So that's automatically one of Dan Schneider's live action shows, because it's someone who is starring in the show and the show is also after their name. And people deduced that it wasn't iCarly because Miranda Cosgrove's name is not Carly. However, Victoria Justice's name is Victoria. So it's automatically one of Dan Schneider's live action shows, but as the details are revealed, the publication that released this blind item was able to identify it was allegedly about Victoria Justice, Ariana Grande, Liz Gillies, and Miranda Cosgrove. So here we go, buckle up, because this gets disgusting. This is what the friend is saying about their meeting, allegedly with Victoria. A mutual friend said we should meet to clear the air. An actress wanted to tell her side of the stories I had been hearing about her from others. She says she is not a pain to work with, and that for the past year, she has purposefully not asked for anything on set from anyone. Yet, the stories continue. She knows why. She blames it on a producer who has been featured on this site from almost the very beginning. Our actress says that even though she was the star of the show, it was in name only. When she landed the part, the producer never mentioned anything about sleeping with her, because he had a handful of other actresses on other shows who were keeping him busy. All but one of them were underage. She suspected that because she was legal for almost the entire run of the show, that he was just not that into her. At some point, he did allegedly try and sleep with her, and she turned him down. That rejection cost her a bunch of scene reductions on Victorious. The next time she turned him down, her personal appearance offers began to dry up, and she was even in fewer scenes. Which, y'all, this does line up with Victorious. The final 2 seasons of Victorious, Victoria Justice is barely in, and Kat and Jade really take the center stage of the whole show. Anyway, continuing on with this blind item, meanwhile, this producer found someone else to sleep with, and who is also legal, but loved to roleplay super young. And the publication has identified this, allegedly, as Ariana Grande. She was getting the good lines and scenes. She was being offered crossover opportunities, and new shows were being developed for her. The producer also stated, pitting the cast against our actress. If you want your career to succeed, you took the side of the producer. If you wanted it to fail, you took her side. The producer started spreading lies about our actress. He did so regularly. When the show finally ended, there was no one out there who was willing to hire her because of all the stories the producer had been spreading. So when she did get work and asked for anything, or was a few minutes late from lunch or whatever, the stories would start start again and getting work even harder. The only work she can really get at this point are product endorsement deals and doing work for companies. No one wants to hire her for acting. No one wants her for pretty much anything. She says that even though her career has gone into the tank because she wouldn't sleep with the producer, she doesn't regret her decision. She points to another actress of a show he produced, presumably iCarly. The actress slept with the producer and his friends, and it didn't help her career at all. And y'all, that just makes me think of Miranda Cosgrove's Dr. Luke album, because she has like a whole album that has several songs produced by him, and he's clearly a friend of Dan. She is hoping that people will start to pressure the producer to let up on the comments and that other producers will give her a chance. She just wants to work. End quote. Sadly, Victoria Justice's career has been at a standstill since Victorious. And if this blind item is one of the many blind items that is true, that would mean Ariana Grande was only 16 and Dan Schneider would have been a sickening 47 years old. See, while Victoria Justice was struggling to even get in scenes on her own show, Ariana and Liz were thriving. Liz was friendly with Michael Corcoran, which caused her to be able to get in way more songs and thus more scenes. Since this was a kids network, the Victorious audience often had trouble differentiating the character from the actor or actress playing them. This was great to sell records, but in Victoria's instance, she was now appearing unlikable to these audiences, all while Nickelodeon was trying to sell her music. She was a figurehead on Nickelodeon, but was also largely the negative point in every plot on her own show. And it wasn't in a funny way. She was like, oh, come on guys, why don't we do the right thing? I'm scared. She was the buzzkill of every situation. By the final and most mysterious season of Victorious, the show would just outright spell it out for audiences. In the final series special of Victorious, titled Tori Goes Platinum, Dan Schneider and Sony Music would parody the current state of the music industry. Now, it's important to note that this was around the time of the Ginger Fox episode of iCarly, a public mockery of Britney Jean Spears' 2007 VMA performance. That's now iconic.
It's Britney, bitch.
There was a clear music industry theme on these shows, obviously trying to compete with the cultural phenomenon of Hannah Montana. Anyway, the episode Tori Goes Platinum would focus on a contest conducted by a record label to find the next big pop star and get them to perform at this year's fictional Platinum Music Awards. Predictably, the Victorious cast goes wild and all try to audition, competing with each other. Now, there's a scene ironically featuring Colleen Ballinger, Ariana Grande's close friend at the time, where they all have to audition.
So what I'm gonna do now is break a plane down.
They play Jade's tape, and it's an electrifying duet she wrote with her nearly 40-year-old boyfriend at the time, Victorious executive Michael Corcoran. Her voice was unmatched, and kind of still is in this clip.
Shelter my eyes from the sun and wait for the birds to fly by.
Like it. Then Ariana followed suit and auditioned amazingly to no surprise.
Excellent.
And then we have Tori. Now, don't get me wrong, it's good, but compared to Ariana and Liz, it was just on a different level than those two. They were such powerhouse vocalists, and these two scenes were some of their best vocal moments on the show. Despite all of this, in the episode's plot, Tori's audition beats Jade and Kat's.
To cheer me up, come on down to me, and you take my hand, oh cheer me up, oh, even if we're the only ones dancing.
Now, even as a kid, this raised my eyebrows. I don't know if the producers of Victorious were attempting to make a big point like that, but either way, the gap in singing ranges was apparent. Now, there were numerous rumors on the set of Victorious. Jeanette McCurdy spilled in her book that the cast would always drink and behave super grown up. That's one of the reasons the show may have ended, as the drinking on set and multiple cast members and staff hooking up with each other was a terrible look on the children's network. I mean, if Liz and Michael's relationship alone got out, it would have been a major news story. Either way, without explanation, Victorious would be canceled after its third season. Around the time the second season of Victorious ended, a press boom about the show not being renewed for a fourth season hit every news outlet. This confused the entire Victorious audience, as the show had massive ratings. In the same time period, Nickelodeon announced an order for 2 new Nickelodeon spin-off shows. One called Gibby, a spin-off from iCarly that didn't make it past the pilot stages, and Sam and Cat, a buddy comedy set to feature iCarly's Jeanette McCurdy and Victorious's Ariana Grande. Fans of the show began freaking out, and Dan Schneider took to his blog Dan Warp to update the fans, writing, "There is a whole new season of Victorious coming your way. We just finished shooting 15 new episodes and they're amazing. By now, a lot of you have heard that Victorious will not be returning for a 4th season. That is true. Please understand, almost all Nickelodeon live-action shows have a lifespan of about 60 episodes. We've made around 60 episodes of Drake and Josh, of Zoey 101, and we made 41 episodes of The Amanda Show, and all those shows were big hits. Yes, iCarly did more, but the vast majority of Nick live-action shows do around 60 episodes total. I would love to have made more than 60 of Victorious, but that's how it usually goes. Whenever I begin a new TV series for Nick, 60 episodes is the plan from the beginning. I've heard some people use the word cancelled, which isn't accurate in this case. The term cancelled is usually used, not Dan Schneider explaining to us what cancelled means. Dan continued on, the term cancelled is usually used when a TV show gets poor ratings, causing the network to end the show early. TV shows that aren't doing well get cancelled. Ratings for Victorious have always been very high, still are, thanks to the fans. Also, just last month, Victorious was nominated for 3 Emmys. And just before that, Victorious won the Kids' Choice Award for Favorite TV Show. That last paragraph sounds like Dan Schneider was crashing out after finding out that Victorious was canceled. Like just listing off all the accomplishments like that. Now he continued on saying, "It's really important that you know this. The network's decision about Victorious had nothing to do with Gibby or Sam and Cat. I promise. I really appreciate that you care so much. It means you love the show, which makes me feel very proud." Dan Schneider ending the letter with a chilling prophecy, writing, quote, "And I hope you'll continue to support me and all the stars of Victorious. I can almost guarantee you they will make a big impact on the future of entertainment." Now, there are many theories around why Victorious ended. Everyone automatically assumed it was the obvious. Ariana Grande was signed to a record label and was going off to film Sam and Cat. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Our second theory actually comes straight from the mouth of Ariana Grande. A fan went off on her Ask FM. Actually, no, nobody said that. And even if they did, this is different because Sam and Cat ruined Victorious. All those other shows had closure. Victorious didn't have closure because of Sam and Cat, no matter what you people, you and Dan, say. You're obviously just trying to protect yourselves from the hate, end quote. Ariana quipped back with, quote, "Sweetheart, the only reason Victorious ended is because one girl didn't want to do it. She chose to do a solo tour instead of a cast tour. If we had done a cast tour, Nickelodeon would have ordered another season of Victorious, while Sam and Cat filmed simultaneously, but she chose otherwise. I am tired of this BS." Fans began adding up the timeline and realized that Victorious ended right around the time Victoria Justice embarked on her 2012 Make It in America solo tour. Now, Victoria would respond back to this on Twitter, writing, quote, "Some people would throw someone that they consider a friend under the bus just to make themselves look good. Hashtag stop being a phony. Hashtag if they only knew." Ariana tweeting right after that, quote, "You just can't hide from the truth." But shortly after, Ariana would delete the post and apologize, writing on her Ask FM, "I don't just start drama, and that's why I deleted it. If you think for 1 second that I did this on purpose, you're out of your mind. I really didn't mean it. People already saw it and screenshotted it, but I shouldn't have done it, and I apologize. It's really, really hard being blamed for something you didn't do and hated on so hard for so long. So I just snapped like a little kid. Even though I was defending myself, it was very immature. I sincerely apologize. It really wasn't a good choice. I don't want anybody to hate on anybody." Now, because the Victorious audience preferred Ariana Grande, they would choose to believe her side of the story, and Victoria Justice would remain almost entirely silent on the matter. That is, until rumors of Victoria's mean girl behavior on the set of Victorious would rage the year after.
Ariana Grande reveals major Victorious set drama. In a recent interview with 17, the Nickelodeon star opened up about how apparently during filming, there was a bit of a rift between her and another cast member on the set. And while Ariana does not reveal who this mystery bully is, she does explain, quote, I worked with someone who told me they'd never like me, but for some reason, I just felt like I needed her approval. So I started changing myself to please her. It made me stop being social and friendly. I was so unhappy.
If there's one person out of a bunch of people who love you that don't like you, you will think about it for a second. You will take a second to be like, well, why doesn't that person like me? But you really have to try your hardest not to, because there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like you.
Fans remembered their back and forth they'd had about the show before and immediately began pointing fingers at Victoria. Ariana immediately began damage controlling on Twitter, writing, quote, "Sometimes things get blown out of proportion and misquoted. I'm really not a fan of drama. I guess just breathe and move on. Hashtag all love." But this wasn't enough. Victoria was now being utterly destroyed across the internet. Ariana would plead for the fans to stop on Tumblr, writing, "It's my responsibility to clear up the drama today. I was misquoted in an interview, and I've been very upset and disappointed all day. I was asked about bullying, and I thought I'd share some of my personal experiences so that I could share how I overcame it with my fans, and to hopefully be a help to the people who look up to me and are dealing with being bullied. However, unfortunately, I was a little too vague in my interview, and conclusions were drawn and fingers were pointed. My years filming Victorious were some of the happiest of my life, and that cast is family to me. The stories I were sharing were actually from 2008 when I was on Broadway. It was an amazing experience, but a tough time for me. Please, please don't send hate to anyone. It's undeserved. The point of answering the questions in the first place was to help those of you who are dealing with bullying, not to start drama. I apologize for the commotion. Love you guys very much. Thank you for being here for me and for supporting me." Now, Victoria's response reveals a slightly different story. She replied to a fan on Twitter, piping up with, "Ariana wasn't talking about me. She was talking about her experience on Broadway. How does it feel to have misinformation?" They replied saying, "LOL, I just read an interview where it says your name." So Victoria replied saying, "It never said my name, and she apologized to me. She said she was misquoted by 17. Hashtag get the facts straight." But this wasn't enough. The headlines were written and the damage was done. Now, if we take a look at a snapshot of Victoria Justice's career while Ariana was dominating Sam and Cat, we can get a much clearer picture at just how much more successful Ariana was than Victoria. Victoria had starred in the ill-fated movie Fun Size, which was actually Nickelodeon's first and only PG-13 movie, besides Angus Thong's Imperfect Snogging, which they licensed. Obviously, PG-13 and Nickelodeon don't always go perfectly together, but Fun Size was a complete must-miss. If any of you remember it, comment below. Now, after 2013, Victoria would be credited in various TV movies and romantic comedies, but nothing that made a splash. After Victorious, Victoria would completely back away from the music industry, making way for Ariana Grande to flourish. It was tragic. Victoria Justice's final blip in the public eye was her fight with the biggest star from the show, and arguably the biggest star from her generation, Ariana Grande. In 2015, Victoria had had enough. The online vitriol had only gotten worse, and Ariana Grande was only becoming more and more iconic.
Is there any part of you that regrets breaking up the band, so to speak, with Ariana Grande?
Break up anything. I think it's fair to blame that on me because it's not true.
Oh, I'm not blaming it at all.
No, I'm not saying to you, but in general.
I'm just saying, just since then, there has been a bit of a feud, so to speak, with you and Ariana Grande, which may or may not be based in reality, but that's what people have been saying.
No, I mean, there's no feud. We're not like best friends, but at the end of the day, like I wish her well, and she's doing great, and I'm happy for her.
Ariana Grande just was licking donuts, and then she said she hates America a little bit. You don't hate America, right? You lick donuts. I love America. Would you lick some donuts? No comment on that.
Victoria would speak out about the whole situation on the Meredith Vieira show and would try to explain her side of the story.
Okay, I would love to set the record straight because I feel like these rumors have been going on for way too long. So basically, there was an article in 17 magazine where she had said that she was bullied on set, and the magazine basically alluded to it being me. And then, so once the article came out, actually before it came out, she texted me privately and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. You know how the media like twists words. I was not talking about you. Obviously, like I was talking about someone on Broadway that I had worked with." But once it got out there, like everyone thought that I was this bully and that I was mean to her, which couldn't be further from the truth. Like, sure, we have had like our differences, but at the end of the day, like everyone in the cast of Victorious was a family, and I love and respect all of them and wish all of them well no matter what.
Yeah.
And it was just this ongoing thing, and then people were blaming me, saying that I was selfish for going on tour and that I was the reason why Victorious was canceled, which first of all couldn't be further from the truth because I am not a Nickelodeon executive. I have absolutely no power over whether or not the show continued on, and a lot of the other cast members didn't want to go on a Victorious tour anyways, so it was just kind of unfair, and it was this whole thing, and hopefully now that she's talked about it, I've talked about it, there's no feud, we can put this behind us now, and we can practice what Frozen preaches, my friends, and let it go to the media.
all right.
This did little to calm the rumors, and Victoria would be forced to recede into obscurity, even opting to drop out of a record deal she'd briefly penned with Columbia Records with Sony Music Entertainment, telling Marie Claire magazine they'd sent her music to record, but it didn't feel personal to her. But who was Victoria? The world didn't really know. On Victorious, she was a blank slate character, and in real life, she hadn't developed her personality that much, so a lot of musicians who were working with Victoria had a hard time finding a sound that would be unique to her. It was clear Victoria wasn't going to be shaped into whatever pop image the label or Nickelodeon wanted her to have, so she left. For the next decade, she represented a lost opportunity and a huge transitional career failure on behalf of Nickelodeon, and by proxy, Dan Schneider. Whereas Ariana Grande would represent success. She had everything that Victoria was set up to have, and she would make platinum record after platinum record. Victoria left the music industry, and unfortunately, Victoria Justice's career would never recover. The generation who grew up watching Victorious were becoming teenagers and adults. Not only were they realizing the adult themes of the show, but they were also confirming their stances on just how talented most of the cast was. Unfortunately for Victoria, as many people watched the show back, they found her character to be even more insufferable than they remembered. And as they were looking back, one interview between the Victorious cast and Teen Magazine would alter the trajectory of Victoria Justice's life and career forever. And you may think I'm exaggerating, but once you see the video, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
But it's awesome. She sings absolutely everything. She never stops. That's so true, Liz. You sing a lot too. Like, especially during rehearsals. We all sing. Yeah, I guess that's true. I sing the weird.
Now, this video perpetuated the narrative that Victoria was a bully to Ariana on set, and the internet took this clip and ran. As soon as the 2020s kicked off, Victoria would make a return back to music, but each single would be met with a press tour, where inevitably the Ariana question would come up.
People are always pitting people against each other, and I feel like that was something that was kind of annoying, was seeing how they would try to pin you and other girls against each other, you know, Ariana Grande.
Yeah, exactly. It's been great. I mean, all of that drama, whatever, all that stuff is like, it's just like so silly, and a lot of it really came from like the media, like fanning those flames, and then just people online like fanning those flames and making it this huge crazy thing. And yeah, we're all super supportive of each other, and it's amazing. And I love Ariana, and she's killing it right now, and she's been so supportive of me and my music, and you know, we text, and it's really cool. So everything's all good. But yeah, it is a little frustrating to see how people do love to pit women against each other, but I think at the end of the day, it's all about us like supporting each other and building each other up.
Ariana would remain close to Matthew Bennett and Liz Gillies from the show, reuniting with Dan Schneider in 2019 and celebrating Victorious without Victoria Justice. Now, as we approach 2024, Victoria Justice is collaborating with her past co-stars from Victorious and reuniting with them constantly, even saying she'd be open to a reboot of the show. Now, Victoria's actually become somewhat of a TikTok sensation, and with her 24 million Instagram followers, she's not going anywhere. Now, while her countless singles continue to not make huge waves, she's created a dedicated audience who is invested in her story. And from the looks of her public persona, no matter what she did as a teenager, it seems Victoria is really trying to put her best foot forward. Now, with the release of a documentary called Quiet on Set that largely criticized Dan Schneider and his exploitation of his young child stars, Victoria would speak up about him for the first time in 15 years.
Victoria
Victoria Justice weighs in amid the ongoing controversy over Nickelodeon producer Dan Schneider. The Nickelodeon alum speaks with Marie Claire in a new interview where she opens up about the fallout of the docuseries Quiet on Set. Something that was very evident in the documentary is that Dan had a very large ego, and sometimes that ego clouded his better judgment and affected the way he treated people. And there were times I felt like I was being treated unfairly. She adds, I'm not condoning any of his behavior. At the end of the day, my relationship with Dan is a very complex one. I met him when I was 12 years old, and he's the person that gave me this big break. He completely changed my life. Most likely, I wouldn't be here where I am today if it weren't for him, and for him seeing something in me. For that, I will always be grateful. After watching his apology, I think he recognizes that he did a lot of things wrong, and I think if he could step back into a time machine, he would do a lot of things differently. Dan previously addressed Quiet on Set, issuing an online apology after some former child actors detailed times they felt uncomfortable on set or were made to wear inappropriate costumes. He said in a YouTube video March 19th,
watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult, me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret, and I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
Of his apology video, Victoria adds, I would say I'm definitely one of the people on that list.
The story of Victoria Justice is a tragic one, full of mysteries and possibilities. One thing is for certain, putting a talented star on stage with a bunch of Broadway kids was, would be, and will always be a complete setup. Victoria Justice deserved better than what she was given behind the scenes at Nickelodeon. Now, knowing everything that went down there, it's hard to know the extensiveness of the atrocities committed at the Nickelodeon on Sunset Studios, and what happened to Victoria on those very sound stages. But for now, we can only dive as deep as we can. I'm Jake, and thank you all so much for watching. You can find me over on Instagram at JX3gram. Be sure to follow Shelby over on there too, and we will see you all later. Bye.
She sings absolutely everything. She never stops. That's so true, Liz. You sing a lot too. Like, especially.
Yeah, no, I know how the clip ends. I think we all sing.
Correct.
Yeah, that's naughty of you guys. You know what? I think it's become a really positive and iconic sound. And we did all sing.